Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning, and welcome to your Indianapolis Public Library, and a very special welcome to the Indianapolis Special Collections Room. I know a few of you have been up here before. I know a few of you spend a little time up here in the course of your work. For others of you who are new, this is absolutely your place to learn about the history of our great city. We are honored to have all of you here with us today, and we are especially honored to have Mayor Joe here to help us celebrate another very important historical asset as we move into the city's bicentennial celebration. I would also like to take a moment and welcome Joanne Sanders, who's the president of our library board, and grateful to have Joanne's support. Yes. Today we're celebrating the work that the public library does with great passion, making information available to people. That's what we do. Here in Indianapolis, we do it in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's with buildings and physical collections. Sometimes it's with outreach. And at all times, every day of the week, from anywhere, at any time, we do it virtually when someone is seeking to better understand something. And the virtual collections are the things that we're here today to celebrate. We're very proud to make the wealth of information about the important work done by local units of government, like our schools and police and fire departments, more easily accessible to the community at large and to those outside of our city who want to know more about who we are and what we've done along the way. We're very grateful for the collaboration that we continue to experience with all of our partners in local government. Indianapolis is blessed to have leaders who are concerned about the common good and who believe in the important role of local government to ensure that our community continues to thrive. We love to help tell their story for today and for the future. This morning, we're going to hear from Victoria Duncan, who is here representing the digitization team that's done all this work with our partners. I also want to thank Megan Fuganaga, who is not able to be here today. Unfortunately, Megan, who's the manager of digitization, was in a car accident this weekend, hit and run. She's home, but she'll be okay. We also will hear some reflections from Tom Hannafy, President of the Professional Firefighters Union, and Mike Spears, Deputy Chief of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. But first, we're going to start with our #1 local leader, Mayor Joe Hogsett. Mayor, thank you for being with us today, and come on up. We appreciate your presence and your leadership.
Thank you. Very nice. Very kind. Well, good morning. Will you please join me in giving a round of appreciation and applause to the wonderful CEO of our Indianapolis Public Library, Jackie Needies. And I'm so pleased and proud to be here today with the best of the best, IMPD and IFD, in this important announcement celebrating the memorialization, the digital history that IMPD, the proud history of actually IPD and IMPD, as well as IFD, have available now to us. The poet Wallace Stevens once said, "All history is modern history." That's an observation the digital collection we launched today makes visible about our own city. Thanks to a grant from the Lilly Endowment, the Digital Indy project of the Indianapolis Public Library, and over 80,000 separate image scans of photos from both the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and the Indianapolis Fire Department's Firefighters Museum. Simply put, we are able to look at our city's history in ways that we've never had available, like never before. From 1872 up until the present day, 1872 to 2019, we can now trace the various threads of our city's history through the lens of its public safety personnel. And it must be said, nobody knows this city like its police and firefighters. But today's launch revolves around more than just photographs. Our police and our fire departments, as well as our public schools and parks department, have worked with the city's library to create an online museum of photos, records, video footage, audio, and many other artifacts of the histories of all these departments, and by default, the history of our city, Indianapolis. As we approach the 200th birthday of our city, knowing precisely where we come from should be utmost in our minds. Indeed, to truly love our city, we must truly know our city. Today, we are given a tool that allows us to know our city like never before. For this gift, I must thank all of the men and the women of our fire department, our police department, the library, who worked literally thousands of hours on this project. Their research, curation, and attention is visible on every web page. I also wish to thank, yet again, the Lilly Endowment. Have I said that enough? Thank you, Lilly Endowment, for the grant that allowed for so much of this rediscovery. And for those city residents who, as we approach our city's bicentennial, those city residents who want to know more about how Indianapolis became the city that we live in, that we love today, I urge them to visit digitalindy.org. And now it's my pleasure to introduce, as Jackie has already referred, Victoria Duncan, the Digital Projects Coordinator for the Indianapolis Public Library. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for that wonderful introduction. It's nice to see that people already understand the importance of what we've been working on for the past 2 years. And so once again, I'm Victoria Duncan, and I'm Digital Projects Coordinator at the Indianapolis Public Library. And I'm so pleased to be here with you representing my department to celebrate the launch of the Indianapolis Fire Department and Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department digital collections. Some of you may remember when the Indianapolis Firefighters Museum collection originally launched over 10 years ago. This next important phase was sparked when IMPD Sergeant Joe Moore and Patrick Piercy approached the Indianapolis Firefighters Museum Director Brian Killalay to see how the police might similarly preserve their own history and create a digital collection. Out of that conversation, and with the support of the Lilly Endowment, we are now thrilled to present to you an IFD collection which has more than doubled to approaching 10,000 items, and a new IMPD collection which is not far behind. We have always said that the key to the success of building these digital collections is that each of these institutions already had a deep respect for and commitment to preserving their own histories. The IFD collection is an extension of the Indianapolis Firefighters Museum. As a result of this project, the IMPD now have the Lichtenberger Indianapolis Police History Room and a dedicated archivist position. Each of these institutions was able to see how different types of materials could be used from their own history could be used to tell their story. Behind me in these cases, you see a brief snapshot of these types of materials. Photographs, artifacts, documents, books, and physical media each tell a story that combine to illustrate the rich histories of these two public safety agencies. Many of these items are fragile, and thanks to the Lilly Foundation, we have been able to include difficult to digitize items such as fragile scrapbooks and obsolete media, such as the dictabelts of emergency dispatch calls. And you'll see more of these over in this case, including the machine which would have been used to play them. Voices from the past have been heard for the first time in many years. Snapshots of day-to-day operations are now preserved. Invaluable first-hand accounts in the form of oral histories ensure that stories that might well have been lost will now be preserved. And the digital projects team couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of it. Over to my right, you'll see a station over by that chair where you can listen to some of the IFD oral histories. And as you see to my right and left, we have screens where after this you can play around with the collection. There's just so much great material here to really like demo. Would be too much, but we'll be around for people to play around and see all the great stuff that we have. Thank you all for everything that you've done to make this possible. And now I'll turn this over to Tom Hannafy, the president of the Professional Firefighters Union of Indiana.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me make it clear, Chief Malone has a family thing, nothing bad, but he had to be at a family event. He had to attend, or he would love to be here. He is a much better speaker, more articulate than me, and not as much fun, though. So if I do a really good job, let him know. If I do a bad job, don't. So that's the word. Anyway, so I'm a 38-year veteran, active firefighter in Indianapolis Fire Department, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be a member of the Indianapolis Fire Department. When I travel in my job as the state union president, I do travel around the country in Canada, and I do programming there, and I tell them I'm from Indianapolis. You know what they say? They say, oh, we always look at what you guys do. You're a benchmark department. Indianapolis Fire Department is a benchmark department of the fire service across North America. That's right, that's right. And I thank Chief Malone and the previous fire chiefs for the last 30 years that have done that. So it's wonderful. And one of the things, because we're a benchmark department, and because we work so well together, we had time to do things. We weren't fighting and arguing like so many communities. We worked together on projects. I can't tell you how proud I am of our minority recruitment program in the Indianapolis Fire Department and the numbers we've achieved. And then we started over after the mergers of the other fire departments. I'm personally, as a firefighter, proud of those things. But we work together, and that saves time. Rather than yelling at the mayor, which I will do once in a while, but rather than yelling at the mayor or the chief, we started a museum. We started the museum over there at Massachusetts Avenue, at 748 Massachusetts Avenue. And we opened it in 1994. And what do you know? All of a sudden, people start bringing things to us. Well, you know, we're firemen. We're firefighters. Get that right, I'll get slapped in the head. We're firefighters, we're men and women in the fire service, and we aren't experts on this, on saving or preserving artifacts and documenting. And we had a lot to learn. So we're collecting more and more stuff, and we didn't know what to do with it. And finally, somebody said, why don't you call the library? I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was the Digital Collection up out of Fort Wayne. And they said, well, Indianapolis Library, they would work with you. So we came, and we just sat there and looked at them and said, well, you think so? So we came down, and we started talking to the staff who's present here, and we started working probably 12 years ago, and they come up with ideas. And the partnership we created, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful partnership and relationship that we have a great museum, a better museum. We have it, we've created partnerships with the State Museum, IUPUI, which is just still working with us. I'm walking through the museum the other day, and I see like 3 or 4 people, and they have all this machinery and equipment, and they are scanning, Brian will tell me later, he'll correct me later, but they were scanning every piece of an apparatus. So they could take that apparatus and rebuild it digitally and literally, and they're measuring every piece. A hose clamp that I've used all my life, not the last few years, but for most of my career, and a hose clamp, and they said, I'll be able to remake that. And you know, that's something. And you say, well, you know, I use it all the time. Well, they may not have them. There'll be new technology, and we'll forget that we had that. And we have it preserved all part because of this relationship with the Indianapolis Library. And I'm pleased. I can't tell you how exciting this is. And then the relaunch of this and new and improved, I would like to say, digitized branch. Now we have rare recordings. We have audio, as you saw. Okay, listen, I'm not that old. I feel very young, Mary, just right behind me. But I remember using those dictaphones. I remember those things. We had them in every firehouse. So they were, wait a second, I know Barker remembers them. He was there around. But anyway, or maybe he doesn't remember because we're both advanced. But we still had those in every firehouse, those dictaphones and those little belts, and I didn't have to mess with them because they wouldn't let me touch that kind of equipment. But now we have the history. And the history of the fire department parallels the history of this great city. And by the way, I'm not from here. I didn't grow up here, but it is my home. It is absolutely my home. And it's a wonderful place. And I would travel around as a firefighter. The mayor said something very telling. He said, no one knows the city like the police and firefighters of this community. Nobody knows it. And that's true. And when I was subbing around and first got in the fire department in 1980, and I was going to different places, I learned so much by talking about the community where these people that look like me, you know, old guys in the firehouse, where they grew up and what they experienced. You know, it was funny. And then I knew more about the city of Indianapolis from talking to those individuals than people that grew up here. And I started telling stories about Irish Hill and Hallville and Hunky Bread and how that originated, and you know, and so many communities across this great city that we're going to talk about more. But we're not saving it. And all of a sudden now we have a place for it. And the bright home is the Indianapolis Library. Things that we have on that, the Grant Fire photographs and audio of the Grant Fire, which if you don't remember, the Grant Fire was when they thought they were burning downtown down in 1973, when I was just went in the service, down here on Meridian and Washington Street. The Coliseum Fire, unbelievable. Horrible situation. Just up there with the fairgrounds, and I was thinking about that. Just thinking about it, because I saw it in this archive. And that was 1963. And of course, the athletic club, I was on that fire, where we lost Woody Glenius and John Lorenzano. And it was a terrible situation. And that might have been the kickoff to make us a benchmark fire department. But I do have one story, because I got lots of them, so be careful. Don't ask for any more. But I have one story. So I'm in my office. This is about 5 years ago, and a woman came in that works at the embassy, and we had some business. So she was dropping off some things for some business that we were having a little small convention there and meeting. And she just said, oh, I just really like working with you guys. She goes, my grandfather was a firefighter. I said he was. She goes, yeah. And she told this story. Just give me a moment. And so she said, yeah, my dad was, you know, my dad was an orphan. His mom died when he was a teenager, and then when he was about 17, his dad, who was a firefighter, died. And he was the oldest of 3 kids. They went and got it into an orphanage, and they didn't have any pictures of his dad. His dad's still alive. And he said, I'm sorry, her and her siblings had no pictures of their grandfather. So we're sitting and we're telling her the story, and you know, and of course everything got taken away, and you know, he had nothing. So we jumped online, looked at the digital collection, and said, here he is, right here. We got that printed out. She then, it was towards Christmas, and she got pictures made for all her siblings. How wonderful is that? How moving is that? And that's one story of thousands, because people get on that. You can't believe it. Harry the plumber was her dad, but anyway. But it was because we all had work on our day off because we didn't make any money. But the point is, the point is how wonderful was that? Where this woman got that picture, found that photograph of her grandfather she had no idea existed, and it was because of this effort, right, ladies? Yeah. You should feel good, staff. So I wanted to share with that. Also, especially so partnerships, the Children's Museum. I didn't mention them. I did mention IUPUI and several departments over at IUPUI. The Indiana Historical Society, a Heritage Foundation gave us a significant grant to reduce museum space because of this relationship, and of course, the Lilly Foundation. And you can't say it enough times. We're so blessed to have that company, that corporation, that foundation, that family here from Indianapolis. And they've been so wonderful. Recently, because of their efforts, we actually were able to, Brian Killalay, who's here, our archivist, was able to identify 32 historical line-of-duty deaths. One of them, it's terrible, I'm going to tell one more story. One of them we found was they were working at our museum, they were working at the firehouse. And the tavern, I'm pretty sure it was probably the pub, but that's open there now. One of you have made, you cops don't go there, but firefighters do. Anyway, the little pub across the street, so there was a robbery, and so the firefighters went over to help. And one of the firefighters got shot in the head and killed. And that was a line of duty that we didn't know, death. And that's important it's important to remember those individuals that sacrificed it all. And 32, all because of this collection and that contribution from the Lilly Foundation. So if I sound appreciative as a firefighter, as a resident of Indianapolis, as a person that loves my city, this is so valuable to have. And I thank Jackie. I cannot thank you, your staff, and this institution. I know, and this institution, it's wonderful. And it's not just us. It's the IPS. You know, so many corporates, so many groups in this city are saving that history for our future generations. So thank you and good work. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning. My name is Mike Spears, obviously with the police department, and I want to thank you all for attending. I appreciate Chief Roach giving me the opportunity to share a few words with you about some of our work. I am proud of all of our accomplishments over the history of our police department. A lot of our work has gone unknown. It's been behind the scenes. And as we look at the things that have happened in our city and the work of our police officers, it's very commendable, and it's very appropriate, very important to get that information out to the public, because I think it serves a wonderful purpose. Like the others who have come before me, I certainly want to thank everybody that's helped this come to fruition. The library, Lilly, and many others who I'll talk about here in just a moment. I also want to recognize Chief Roach and his command staff. I think the presence helps emphasize the importance that we have in this program, in this project. And in the display cases, you'll see several of our past and some of our former officers profiled. Tom talked a little bit about some of the accomplishments and the progress that the fire department has made in recruiting minorities and women and so forth, and a lot of that's reflected here. And I'm proud, while she's here, our newest member of our command staff, Katherine Cummings. Where are you, Katherine? So this is her first time to wear a white shirt, and we're glad she's here. So congratulations. I do want to thank the mayor and the chief for their support of this project, because without them it wouldn't have been possible, so thank you very much, sir. I'll have to admit to all of you that when I was a young police officer, I probably didn't pay as much attention to history and the past of our police department as I should have. But I've been here a couple of years now, and over those years I've come to develop an enormous respect for history and for the work of those who have come before us. And it's absolutely appropriate to pay honor to those individuals through this display. This is a growing collection. It's not finished, and we continue to work on it. And if anybody has anything that they'd like to share with us or know someone that does, we can scan it, we can get it in the collection and return it. We also have a collection of memorabilia and artifacts that we're preparing, hopefully at some point, to have a museum like yours. And if anyone wants to donate those things, they can see us afterwards, and we'll talk to them about how to do that. Patrick Piercy, I'll talk about in a minute, but he's put these displays together, and they're sort of a a little collection of our past, but we also have some living history here as well. Chief Zunk and Chief Barker, two of our former chiefs, are here with us, and I appreciate their attendance. So I see some people from the media here afterwards. If you want to look at those things, you can also talk to some history as well. But now I think it's time to thank some people. And again, Mayor and the Chief, I want to thank Roger Spurgeon. I said David. Roger Spurgeon. We have two Spurgeons. I get them mixed up. But over the years, he's done a lot of work to help put things together. I want to thank David Dickens, who's here, who helps a lot with our photography. Megan, obviously, did a great deal of work for us, and we appreciate everything she's done. But without a doubt, there are two people in this room today that, without their help, this project wouldn't be possible, and that's Joe Moore and Patrick Piercy. So thank you, Patrick. It's just hard to say how much your work has meant to us, and it's extremely valuable, and it'll be here for generations to come, and it's very much appreciated. So again, on behalf of our entire organization, thank you all for helping us get our history and our message out to the public, and spend some time and look at our displays. Thank you.
Yes, sure.
This is kind of important.
Okay.
In the 1960s, we had one sergeant in particular who was kind of our main training sergeant at the police academy. His name was Winston Churchill. And in the back of the room, dressed as a sergeant from 1960s, is his nephew. And we have two of our officers dressed in our uniforms from the 60s, and we went to the dark shirts, I think, in 1977. But that's what we used to wear, and I think they look pretty sharp, and I want to thank them for displaying those uniforms for us.
That's living history. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. You know, I want to take a moment and ask the staff from the digitization team and the special collections room if you would stand. You guys have been working on this for a long time. Come on, lots of you. You all. Yeah. This, you know, the day will come where virtual collections like this will be the way we will learn our history. I mean, right now we've got a building full of stuff, but our children, our children's children, will study history in a different way. And the work that's been getting done by this team and others across the city to capture our stories and continue to make them accessible to us is so critical, and it's so valuable for those future generations. These two collections I find especially meaningful as a former city county councilor, because government gets such a bad rap sometimes. And across our country, our sense of credibility about government, our confidence in it gets really shaken. But when you look back through history and you see all the events of the lives of our city that have been touched by our public servants, you just have to really appreciate the fact that we live in a place where we have such good government and such dedicated public servants to help our lives work out well. It means so much. And so we want to tell your stories, every one of you. We've got over 72 completed digital collections from neighborhood groups and all that kind of stuff. But as the chief said, these things never stop growing. So if you have anything or know anybody who has something that helps tell the story of the wonderful work of our public safety folks, please share it with us. We want to make sure the whole world knows, because they're the best. So enjoy. You can touch these screens and look at anything you want to. Staff will be around to answer questions, and we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.